The Browns' fifth-round pick, Shedeur Sanders, suffered a strained oblique while warming up for practice Wednesday. He did not participate in joint practice sessions with the Eagles. According to Kevin Stefanski, the head coach, he's unlikely to participate in Thursday's sessions or Saturday's game against the defending champs. With that, welcome in Bryant McFadden and Ryan Wilson, two of our great NFL analysts. So Shedeur Sanders missing time, guys. This is a packed quarterback room. 5 guys competing for that job. However, Dillon Gabriel and Kenny Pickett, they've also missed time, too, earlier in the preseason. How does this affect the chances of Sanders winning this quarterback competition? B-Mac, let's start with you.
It will affect his chances significantly. And here's why. He was already at the bottom of the barrel when you look at the quarterback depth chart, right? Well, Dillon Gabriel, Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco. But because of how well he played last week in that start against the Carolina Panthers, he was gaining momentum. Right? Everyone got an opportunity to see what he could do on a very, very big stage, and he lived up to the billing. So now getting ready for week 2, along with the joint practices against the Eagles, he had another opportunity to create more momentum for himself to move up the depth chart. And he was slated to start in front of healthy Dillon Gabriel, who is going to participate in week 2. So now hearing this injury, all of that momentum is stagnant right now. Not only is he's not participating in the game, but he's not getting these much-needed reps against the Philadelphia Eagles in terms of their ones. Because when you look at the issue, most people were complaining about not getting the reps with the ones. Well, it sounded like he was going to get more reps than what he's seen so far throughout training camp this week against the Eagles in these joint practices. So this is a very, very difficult thing for him. Granted, it's out of he can't control this, right? He has nothing to do with controlling this injury, but this, it stops the momentum that he has. And also, too, I don't know if you guys have ever strained your oblique muscle. It's a very, very uncomfortable injury. So today is Wednesday. They don't play until Saturday. They already stated he's not playing Saturday. So now it's about what happens in the final week of the preseason slate for Shedeur Sanders. Hopefully he can get healthy enough to participate next week to play in the final preseason game.
B-Mac, at this stage, I strain my oblique every time I get out of a chair. So, yeah, I understand what that's like. The difference is I'm not Shedeur Sanders. But you're exactly right, because this is a setback of sorts, given how well he played in that Week 1 preseason game. And the funny thing, and I'd be curious what you think about this, I was talking to our buddy Rand Carthon about this on the podcast today, and he said, look, you can get a shot for an oblique injury and go out there and suck it up and play. And part of me wonders if they're being cautious just because it's week 2 of the preseason. Part of me wonders if they're thinking, you know what, let's let Dillon have the spotlight this week and not have the shadow of Shedeur Sanders looking over his shoulder. Because there has been a push from fans, even before last week's game, to have Shedeur at least compete for the starting job with Joe Flacco. And if Dillon Gabriel goes out there and he lays an egg against the Eagles, we're going to continue to have that conversation. If he balls out like Shedeur did last week, then things become a little more equal in terms of that race. And, of course, you would imagine Dillon will get the nod as the 3rd-round pick as opposed to Shedeur as the 5th-round pick. Part of me also, just on the outside looking in, gets the sense that Kevin Stefanski wants this to be not about Shedeur and perhaps about Joe Flacco and maybe whoever's behind door number 2, not named Shedeur. So I think this is sort of putting some pumping the brakes on the Shedeur train right now, fair or not. But the sooner he gets back out there, obviously, and plays well, the more likely he is to be a real contender to see some reps sometime this year.
You know what, Ryan, to your point, I thought about the same thing. Why not take a shot? Because I tore my oblique muscle when I was playing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it was towards the end of the season. And I took multiple shots in multiple games to go out and play. It was very, very uncomfortable when you talk about that needle going into that very sensitive spot where your oblique is. But it was something that was doable, and I did it. So I'm like, was that even an option? Now, granted, we don't know the severity. We hear it's a strain, but we don't know if that was an option or not. But to your point, if Shedeur played again, start in front of Dillon Gabriel and play well, now you have something to talk about in terms of how this depth chart is going to be assembled, right? So we got to see how it plays out, but clearly this is not what you want to hear if you're Shedeur Sanders. It's a part of the game, unfortunately, but not what you want to hear.
It is interesting you guys bring up the shot because obviously this is a preseason game, but for him, this could be the situation for him to be the starter come week 1, as we just discussed. So lots
or
to play
move
out.
up the depth chart, be number 2,
Absolutely.
which would be a great spot to be in if you're talking about the Cleveland Browns, who might not win a lot of ball games.
Absolutely. We'll see how this thing plays out in the next week or two. Let's move on. The Micah Parsons, Jerry Jones saga rages on in Dallas. Now, the All-Pro linebacker made his trade request on August 1st, leaving the field on Wednesday. When asked for comment, he said, "My mouth is closed." Now, Jerry Jones, on the other hand, he was talking.
Now that you're headed home, do you think that talks would pick up a little bit with him?
I don't know that necessarily talks will, but we've got a game coming, and he's under contract.
Is there a deadline to know whether Micah Parsons plans to play in week 1 or not?
No, not at all. You don't have deadlines when you're playing under a contract.
What's preventing you guys from talking right now?
Again, really nothing.
So why don't you talk?
Again, nothing would be that, and we might or might not talk. And the rest of that gets in what we do every day.
Even though he is under contract, are you guys comfortable if we don't get a deal done that he'll be ready to go for Philly?
Well, again, all you got to go on are contracts. And we are negotiating for a contract. Well, when you do a contract, you would hope that after a negotiation, that's what both the team and the player look to see what our obligations are. And so I have a lot of respect for a contract.
We might or might not talk. This is very Shakespearean. B-Mac, I'll let you start here. What were your thoughts on what was said or maybe not said by all that in Jerry Jones?
This is becoming difficult to endure as an outsider. It's almost like there's a power struggle going on. Because usually most organizations, in terms of the GM or the owner, when they have questions asked of them about a really good player who's in the midst of a contract dispute, we're only going to focus and talk about the guys that are currently participating in practice. Simple as that. But we've been seeing this back and forth, mostly coming from Jerry Jones, targeting Micah Parsons. It feels like it's a power struggle. It feels like it's personal. Now, one thing that you cannot disagree with, Micah Parsons is under contract. So the obligations of that contract state that he should participate and play in games. But because of the new landscape of the NFL world, he's not participating until he gets his worth, which shouldn't be difficult to give him his worth when you look at the tape that he's put out since becoming a member of the Dallas Cowboys. So every time Jerry Jones speaks about this ordeal with Micah Parsons, he speaks as if he can care less about Micah Parsons. He speaks as if he can care less if he doesn't participate. And this does not make any sense because Micah Parsons is the best player on the Dallas Cowboys. He is the best player. He is the most valuable player. He's not the most important because that's the quarterback, but in terms of being the best and the most valuable, that's Micah Parsons. But he is the one that's kind of begging for a contract of his worth. And for me, it doesn't make any sense. I still believe they're going to get a deal done, but it feels like Jerry Jones is just tearing down this relationship just to build it back up all over again, which doesn't make any sense.
B-Mac, you fall in hook, line, and sinker for exactly what Jerry Jones wants. I think it was P.T. Barnum that once said there's no such thing as bad publicity. We're still talking about the Dallas Cowboys, and Jerry Jones looks pretty happy doing so, even if talking about things that maybe don't make sense to rational people trying to assign rational and common sense explanations for how things should play out. I think that Jerry Jones loves this. He's made it clear that he loves being the spotlight, in the middle of the media spotlight, and we're seeing this play out in real time. We saw it play out with CeeDee Lamb. We saw it play out with Dak Prescott. Twice. So I think he's just dragging his feet on this. I'm sure Micah is incredibly frustrated, and Micah should be incredibly frustrated. But I would just encourage Micah and B-Mac and Dallin and Ryan Wilson, let's take a break from Jerry Jones until he's done spinning his wheels and he ends up paying Micah Parsons $45 million a year, $4 million more a year than T.J. Watt currently makes, because that's, at the end of the day, what's going to happen, unless they're going to trade him, and I don't think that's going to be the case. So Jerry Jones is enjoying the spotlight until he has to get over to Micah, and I think that's all he's doing, and he's having a little fun doing it.
Oh, Ryan, Sorry for you, sorry for all of us. You know how TV works. We'll be talking about it probably again tomorrow and the next day and the next day, but that's understandable. He's one of the best players in the game, as B-Mac pointed, as you both pointed out. All right, let's get to Buffalo. Big news out of Buffalo. James Cook, hold in, if you will, is over. The running back inked a 4-year, $48 million extension Wednesday, $30 million guaranteed. The two-time Pro Bowler was at camp but not fully participating as the former second-round pick was seeking a large raise prior to the final year of his rookie deal. Now, he's not the only person the Bills have brought back here. They have secured their roster. I mean, they started in the spring with Josh Allen. Obviously, you've got to have the QB, 6 years, $330. Gregory Rousseau, Christian Benford. You see the whole list of key players here. So I kick it to you guys, and I'll start with you, Ryan. When they went out and did this in the offseason, this is securing their key guys, their nucleus of guys. Do you feel like this sets them up for not just next year, but the years ahead? Should we just expect the Bills to be atop the AFC?
Yeah, as long as Josh Allen is under center, they are always going to have a chance. And I think Brandon Beane deserves a lot of credit, this GM, because it started with the Josh Allen pick, and a lot of people were skeptical at the time whether he was going to pan out based on the way he was inconsistent at Wyoming. But he's one of the best players in football, no doubt about it. But then the subsequent draft picks and free agent signings, this draft class, as I mentioned earlier, was absolutely lights out. They focused on the defense. You talked about Greg Rousseau getting that deal. Greg Rousseau is quietly one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. And then James Cook. And James Cook wanted $15 million. He got 12, and he seemed pretty happy about it when he talked to the media after signing that deal and showing back up in pads at practice. And look, he's not Saquon Barkley and what they bring to the Eagles, but he's incredibly important. I believe he scored 16 touchdowns last year. He's incredibly important in terms of what that offense needs, because it's unclear, B-Mac, who wide receiver one is going to be. They don't have a Justin Jefferson or Stephon Diggs back in the day when he was lighting things up with Josh Allen. So they have to have a wide receiver / tight end / running back by committee to get the ball down the field. And James Cook is a big part of that. But this starts and ends with Josh Allen, and then everyone else falls in line. And I think that defense is going to be what gets them over the hump this year, when in years past, that's been their Achilles heel in January.
Yo, Ryan, I'm glad you gave Brandon Beane his flowers, because he deserves a full bouquet of flowers. Great job. All the players that got extended by the Buffalo Bills this year were all homegrown players, players they drafted, players they developed, players they retained. That's a big plus when you look at being successful and being competitive, because you talk about the future plans for the Buffalo Bills. Those guys are locked up for years to come, not to mention some of the other guys they've brought in via free agency and the most recent draft. Ryan, you talked about the job they did this past year's draft. It was another outstanding draft by Brandon Beane and his staff. So now the personnel is in place for the chef. And the chef has been cooking up great dishes with all the spices he has at his disposal in Sean McDermott. So yes, they got close a year ago. I think they get right back to that same spot and potentially get over that hurdle that has been hurting them for such a long time. But everything starts and it stops with Josh Allen. He played unbelievable a year ago, got the MVP. I do believe he can be set up to do the same thing. And you talked about not really having a wide receiver one like some of the other high-level teams in the National Football League. I think, Ryan, they kind of like it that way. Wide receiver by committee, because it's not like Josh Allen is forced to try to get one guy the football every single passing opportunity. He's okay in just passing the ball along throughout the entire room to wherever it is that's wide open. And it worked for them a year ago. I think really feel like they can utilize that same game plan this season, along with having an airbag-like guy in James Cook that can also be a pass catcher out of the backfield.
Well, we'll find out. They open up the season at home against the Ravens and that new look secondary. It's going to be a great matchup to open the regular season Thursday. That's that night, Sunday night. All right, guys, thanks a lot for your time. Appreciate it. And, of course, starting the season, too, just mentioned it, September 7th, baby. We are back in a 6-game slate here on CBS. It includes Aaron Rodgers' Steelers debut, taking on the Jets, his former club, one of his former clubs. Also an NFC North battle, Lions-Packers, one of the best rivalries in the game, historic rivalry. You can stream your local game always on Paramount Plus all season long.